Greetings, this is Roaslind Parks with National Network View News. Weekly contributor Dr. Akili Muhammad will update us on the COVID pandemic and Delta variant, which is surging in America and across the world. Later, Brother Shahid Muhammad, the math doctor and Asiatic Minds Math Instructor, will discuss student achievement, proficiency in mathematics, and how Asiatic Minds is helping students to improve their math skills and abilities. Before we get into the top news, let's do a recap of the current events we've recently covered. NNV News anchor Christina Muhammad was joined by guest commentators, Regional Student Minister Dr. Abdul Halim Muhammad and Sister Deborah Muhammad of the NOI's Ministry of Education for a discussion about the impact of COVID and the Delta variant surge on the Black community.
With the Delta variant posing a serious threat, how can we expect this new strand to impact our community? Specifically, after witnessing the medical neglect that the Black community faced last year during the first wave.
Well, that is exactly the problem. The problem is the lack of diversity in the medical field, particularly in this administration, and the lack of equitable treatment in terms of there are two medical systems, one for the rich and Caucasians, and the other for the poor and people of color and even Caucasians. So the real problem is the comorbidity. See, they're often reporting, well, this amount of people died from the virus, but they very rarely talk about what were the comorbidities. How many of those people were obese? How many of those people lacked vitamin D? How many of those people had suffered from diabetes or cardiovascular problems?
Christina Muhammad posed questions to Dr. Abdul Halim Muhammad and Sister Deborah Muhammad about issues surrounding the vaccine mandate and whether it violated our rights.
With all the underlying preconditions that we discussed earlier that are affecting the world, especially the Black community, and these preconditions are what? Heart disease, diabetes, asthma, and cancer. We have never, ever witnessed the U.S. government works this hard to solve any of those problems. Why is there so much focus on this vaccination?
Well, the government of the Park has been telling us for a very long time that there has been a plan by those who are in power to control the population of the world. And so the reason being is because this is part of this master plan, this scheme that this cabal of people have to control the population of the planet. And so that's why they're working so hard. That's the overall reason why they're working that hard. It's because they want to control the population of people that they consider to be useless eaters. And so that is one of the reasons among many.
Dr. Halim Muhammad and Sister Deborah Muhammad shared their thoughts about the Center for Disease Control and Prevention's eviction moratorium ending.
So, just a year after the initial start of the pandemic, where millions were furloughed and laid off, and many, by the way, have not yet recovered from this, will now potentially be facing evictions as a federal eviction moratorium has now expired as of July 31st. Dr. Halim, what does this mean for Black people in America?
It is a crisis. We're already suffering disproportionately from homelessness. And at a recent community roundtable that we had here in Houston, the Justice of the Peace and also the constable who serves these evictions in our community both spoke at the roundtable. And they were deeply concerned that, in fact, Congress had not passed an extension of this moratorium. So now those vested interests, such as landlords, mortgage companies, and banks, are going to have their way.
On I Have a Testimony, NNV News anchor Willie Muhammad's guest was student minister Aman Muhammad of Mosque number 34 in Durham, North Carolina, who shared his experiences and memories growing up and how reading the Holy Quran ignited his interest in Islam.
In the interview, you spoke about how your reading of the Quran ignited your interest in Islam. And, so how did you come about, like, who put the first Quran in your hand, and how did it impact you?
Yes. Well, at that time, it wasn't as many Black bookstores and things of that nature at that time. And so I used the library a lot for whatever I wanted to do and research. And so I would go back and forth, trying to get little dabs of wisdom here and there and whenever I could. And at the time when I was in the 12th grade in 1990, my girlfriend at that time, she was going to NC State in Raleigh, and she was studying as well. And she gifted me my first Holy Quran. And man, when I got it, when I got into that book, man, I couldn't put it down.
Last week, I sat down with weekly contributor Brian E. Muhammad to discuss growing concerns over the effectiveness of the African National Congress in governing South Africa, its internal power struggles, and the social unrest. Now, has the ANC outlived its effectiveness and ability to govern South Africa?
I'll say this, the ANC came to power in 1994. And I just want to take this opportunity, of course, to correct a number. I said 24 years last week, but it's actually, they've been in power for 27 years now. Okay. And, they're the first democratically elected government. Before that, it was white settler minority rule, who ruled strictly by white supremacy. And so when they came to power, the ANC came to power, they made many promises to the people, of how life would be better, how, it would be a better South Africa under our rule. And of course, everybody believed. Nobody wanted to see the ANC fail.
Sister Mariam K. Muhammad, founder of Heal Thy Life Center, shared how her spiritual life coaching addresses the overall health condition of women and girls through hands-on workshops, health seminars, lectures, and retreats. Do you feel there's a lack or a void of this type of information, or even this type of space for space like yours in today's society?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I feel like women are treated as if we're a new species to the planet. When it comes to our health, whether mental health, physical health, spiritual health, we're treated as if we're new. The time that it takes to learn how our bodies function is put to the sideline. If you look at the medical industry, we're not a priority. So when you go to the OB-GYN or you get a checkup and they're telling you, oh, you're okay, and you're describing your signs and symptoms, and they're trying to tell you it's normal, but it's not normal. Or they're experimenting on us, or everything is always so extreme. I may be having pain in my reproductive system. Oh, she needs a hysterectomy. Like everything, the responses are always so extreme instead of taking the time to learn how our bodies work.
Poet, artist, and social activist Ankit Rumi graced us with her art and transcendental poetry about existence and social justice. Yes. Can you give us a short overview of what you do and how you came into your purpose?
Yes, ma'am. I can give you a short overview. I love history, and I love art history in particular. And I study art history so much. And sometimes I just feel like there's something missing. Like I want to tell our stories in a way that's celebratory and not necessarily so sad. So I focus on people in our history who are traditionally celebrated, for instance, Harriet Tubman. But intricately, we don't really know Harriet. And so I tell our stories in a way that we get to celebrate the full being. It's not just like these little snippets of history that we get, you know, from historical books, I guess, traditional historical books, but just doing like deep research, reading her autobiographies, reading anything written on her in that time when she was alive, and trying to convey just how amazing we are.
Weekly contributor Dr. Akili Muhammad gave an update on the COVID pandemic and Delta variant that is surging in America and around the world. What is the reason the number of infections is rising again?
You know, I think that's an excellent question. You know, the first thing that I will say is that, you know, the media continues to push that it's unvaccinated people that are causing the surge. But I think just one simple question can put that to rest, and that is, what did the unvaccinated people have to do with this pandemic starting from the beginning? You know, so that to me is a very worthless statement that a lot of people are making, because viruses are very unpredictable. And as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said in the criterion, July 4th, 2020, they will not be able to stop this. It has mutations that are happening faster than they can keep up with. And so that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with the reality that the minister has given us a path to look at by his statements that he made July 4th, 2020, and we're watching that reality come into fruition.
Sister Shahid Muhammad, founder and director of Asiatic Minds Online School, and Sister Tiffany X, the school's science instructor, shared more about the Asiatic Minds curriculum and how it will provide knowledge that students need to learn and to have a foundation in science. Students enjoy learning, especially when it's delivered well. How will Asiatic Minds promote learning and make it an enjoyable experience for the students?
At Asiatic Minds, one thing I'm really excited about is we are going to have a school theme song. So that will be one of the things that we'll get our morning started with. After our prayer and recitation to the flag, we will open up with the theme song to get the children excited and ready about school. Also, to make education enjoyable, all of our teachers have excellent personalities. So they will bring their passion and personality to the table, which is something that engages students. When you're passionate and you show how much you care and that you're into a subject, that draws the children in, as well as the different online tools, you know, Kahoot quizzes and different things like that that will be used to help the children to engage into the subjects and have fun while doing it.
Let's pause for announcements from our sponsors. Then medical contributor Dr. Akili Muhammad will join us to discuss the growing concerns surrounding the COVID pandemic and Delta variant. We'll be right back.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps us to highlight solutions for a brighter tomorrow. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.
Asiatic Minds, online education, helping our children to discover their God-given skills, gifts, talents, and passion that will allow them to see their greatness, as well as the greatness of our people. And upon discovering that greatness, infusing them with the desire to use it for the betterment of themselves, their families, our people, and the world. Call now, 502-219-4848.
This is Sister Shahid Muhammad. We are proud to announce that the Sajda House commemorative Elijah coins are finally here. This priceless heirloom, made from recycled copper from the messenger's home, is now available at sajdahouse.com.
The hashtag Bank Black social media campaign made strides not only in revolutionizing how we bank, but also how we think. The movement inspired thousands of African Americans across the country to transfer or deposit millions of dollars into Black-owned banks. These are banks that will invest in urban communities, employ African Americans, support Black businesses, and inspire Black home ownership. This is a very proud moment for our culture as we are taking small, but significant, steps towards building Black power through Black wealth.
Thank you for tuning in to NNV News. Please share your thoughts with us in the comments section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel, National Network View. This is Clifton Muhammad with NNVnews.com.
As cases of COVID-19 are rising in many places around the world, there are reports that breakthrough infections from vaccinated people are greater than we thought. The CDC has reversed its guidelines.
Canada may have one of the highest vaccination rates in the world, but still the threat remains.
We can't approach this as if COVID is over, because the truth is it's not. We don't really know how the situation is going to play out in the fall.
The fall, when federal officials warn a fourth wave could sweep across the country unless more Canadians get vaccinated, and soon. In Alberta, where the province is rolling back efforts to test and trace, COVID-19 is spreading rapidly. Calgary's cases doubled just last week.
Uncontrolled outbreaks is what allow viruses to mutate. That's where variations come from. And man, I don't want to unleash an Alberta variant on the world.
The rise already being fueled by the highly contagious Delta variant and the unvaccinated. About 1 in 5 eligible Canadians still haven't had even one dose, a choice costing some their lives.
Joining us to discuss this is weekly contributor Dr. Akili Muhammad. Greetings, sir.
Greetings, ma'am. How are you?
Yes, sir, I'm good. Dr. Akili, the cases of COVID-19 are rising in many places around the world. What's your take on the general response of countries and people?
No, my first thought is that in probably November to February of 2021, just about every country, and of course I'm talking about more of the Western countries, we're talking about vaccinations being the solution. That, medications played a role in effective this thing. Vaccination was what was being, and of course to date is still being pushed. Heard in this clip that we just heard. When you look at the statistics that are coming from different places all over the world, they're talking about 70 to 80% of vaccinated people are being infected. And these vaccines, ever been said that the people that get them wouldn't be able to get the infection nor give it. And so if you're doing this much statistical analysis on how many vaccinated people are actually getting the virus, then you're also looking at the possibility of how it's being spread. So to blame vaccinated people is kind of silly, because it wasn't unvaccinated people that started this pandemic from the beginning. That's the first part. The second thing is that if you had an idea that vaccinating people was going to help curtail this pandemic, then with the number of people that are being vaccinated in this country and other countries, why is it not slowing this rise that we're having? Because this rise is being compared to the first time that it entered this country, and a lot of other countries are doing analysis on how it rose in the beginning as well. And if this Delta variant is causing an uptick in the numbers faster than these other variants. And so when you're talking about a variant that is more infective and causes more severe disease, then why isn't the vaccine slowing this down when supposedly this vaccine, and of course here in America, they're saying that the vaccine is keeping people from getting as sick and keeping people from dying.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that it's not keeping people from getting sick.
Right. Now, the CDC suggested that vaccinated people didn't have to wear masks in public gatherings, and they've now reversed that suggestion. What's your interpretation of this move?
Yeah, to me, my interpretation is that it's another example of how confused these people are. They say one thing, and then within they're saying something opposite because they know how to handle this. The minister took the criteria in July 2020. Scientists from heaven cannot deal with the pandemic from heaven. And we're being shown this over and over and over again. There are certain faces that all of us know what they are. They're going to be posted in all these different news sites, and they're going to say something. And then not too long after, people have lost complete confidence because it's over and over and over again that these people are saying one thing and coming back and doing something.
Right.
Also say there are a lot of people that have like they were tricked or feel like they were to it. Now they're starting to say, wow, I really don't believe I gave in to believe this because some were free from catching COVID for a year and 4 months, a year and 3 months, get the vaccine and then get infected. So there are a lot of people that are doing a lot of questioning. And I think as we start asking ourselves questions and as we continue to pay attention to what's happening around us, we're going to lose even more confidence in the people that are so-called here to guide us.
Now, there are reports that the breakthrough infections from vaccinated people are greater than we thought. How can we make sense of that?
Well, again, I think we have to look at the numbers that we're seeing in the media, which they are saying 99.99% of vaccinated people have not had a breakthrough infection. And so that leaves 0.1%, right? And they're saying, well, nothing is 100%. So this is the small part of the population that we would expect. But as I have said previously, the breakthrough infections are much more than what is being reported from the statistics. And I can tell that by just what I'm interacting with people myself that have been vaccinated and are now sick, as well as the doctors that I'm talking to around the country. It's one thing to get news from a news source that we don't trust and don't have any confidence in, but it's another thing to get information from grassroots, meaning people in the community, doctors that are working in these hospitals, these emergency rooms, these urgent care centers. And I haven't heard very many people from around the country that work in the healthcare system that aren't saying that there are plenty of vaccinated people. As a matter of fact, they're seeing more vaccinated people with adverse event and breakthrough infections than they are people catching COVID for the first time. So the information that's coming from people and coming from our audiences is telling us that the statistics that we're being fed, or I should say is being trying to force down our brains, is absolutely inaccurate.
Right. And you raised a good point. Where would you suggest that people can get reliable information?
Well, I have to say first, you should go and listen to the Criterion message by Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan on NOI.org. And then while you're on NOI.org, after you finish listening to that lecture, there is information on the NOI.org site where we're giving plenty of information for you to think through this process rather than going through this with fear. And then lastly, as I've said before, NNV is a place, if you listen closely, you're getting news from grassroots people. You're getting news from people that are in the community doing work all over this country in many different aspects of society. And so I think this is a good place to come and get information that you can go search or you can contemplate, and you'll see that it seems to make more sense to you. And then lastly, please check out the Ultimate Wellness Group on YouTube or the Ultimate Wellness Group, THEE, on Facebook. I believe that you are going to be presented with information that makes you think. And then when you come out of these type of sources of information, you will feel more empowered that you have information to help you make it through these times versus a propaganda type information, which is trying to force you into something that you either are not comfortable with or you absolutely are against.
Now, Dr. Akili, what would you suggest people do for the remaining months of the year?
Well, my suggestion is, of course, as the clip mentioned, these doctors and epidemiologists, from around the country are really concerned about what's going to happen in the fall because they're concerned about the flu season and the cold season. As the months start getting colder in the United States, that's typically when the viral infections start to rise. And so if we're having a problem with this, whatever wave they call this, some people are calling it a third wave, some are fourth. I mean, I think that's irregardless for the average person. We're going through another surge of cases. The surge of cases lasts for the next 2 to 3 months in the time of that people are having a decreased immune system. So what's going to happen is then they may be going higher or the death rates may be higher. I think that people to please do what I'm suggesting. Go on some quality information that you can rely on, that you can start applying. Second, that while the sun, and as much sun as you can, or skin able to the sun. Lastly, there was talk about family at the beginning of this. Anybody talk about that anymore? So the other suggestion that I would make is please start trying to grow some food of your own. Start with something easy like tomatoes. Those things are easy to grow, but it's time to start more independent. Just imagine if you and 5 or 6 of your friends are all trying to grow food. You will get abundance because that's the way God blesses us. And then we can find a way to start eating foods that are truly going to nourish us and help us improve our immune system so that we can make it through these times. And as I always say, if we do the right things, we'll come out better than we went in.
Great points, Dr. Akili. Let's pause for announcements from our sponsors. Coming up, we will continue speaking on the COVID pandemic and the Delta variant with Dr. Akili. We'll be right back.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.
Worldwide, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Download the Final Call Radio app and take us everywhere. On your phone, on your computer, on your tablet, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also log on to finalcall.com and click the Listen Live button or finalcallradio.com. Final Call Radio, the official voice of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam.
Please share your thoughts with us in the comment section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel at National Network View. I am Anissa Muhammad with nnvnews.com.
As a new surge in COVID-19 cases hits America, people are again preparing for food shortages and rising food prices, as well as stocking up on essentials as the demand for staple goods increases and shelves empty.
It's not only the pandemic, but the climate has also played a role in driving up food prices.
Out west is literally on fire and they're facing a huge drought. So a lot of agricultural products, whether it be blueberries or strawberries, prices are just going up there just because of a lack of supply.
That increases food prices at the grocery store and when you're dining out.
Restaurants are really facing kind of a double whammy right now, where food prices, raw material costs are going up, as well as wages are going up. So their first instinct is to pass that cost on to the consumers.
Restaurants and other industries are also paying higher wages to attract workers. A survey conducted earlier this month by Challenger found 95% of companies are currently hiring and 85% are experiencing a labor shortage. Many in the service industry switching careers after closures and restrictions during the pandemic. Higher wages are often passed on to consumers. Oil production was cut due to low demand during the pandemic, which helped to cause prices to surge 45% from last year. And COVID-19 caused supply chain problems, which hit the auto industry and affected car availability.
Thanks for joining us again, Dr. Akili.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. As governments and businesses mandate vaccination, would there be a need to change in the emergency use authorization before a COVID vaccine could be made mandatory?
Yes, I suspect that there's going to be some changing of those laws because, of course, the Pfizer and Moderna have both asked FDA to give them full approval rather than emergency use authorization. And that, I think, happened within the last month or two. And so as this country pushes towards mandatory vaccination, which when you have the business kind of this line right now, that's pretty much what runs the country. And that's what so many politicians are trying to do, is get the economy back to a place where it's stable. And so they're going to lean to what the business sector is saying right now, that is trying to push vaccination and mandate vaccination. So that the emergency use authorizations are going to change full acceptance. And of course, with the continued push of vaccines and the continued push that the unvaccinated are what is causing the problems,
right,
we're going to have, I believe, I predict there will be mandatory vaccination aspects, like in some places where going concerts and a lot of these state California are at or vaccine proof. And that, I think, is going to continue to become more popular until the pressure is on politicians to say, let's make it mandatory.
Now, the CDC defines fully vaccinated people as those who have waited 2 weeks after receiving both doses of a Pfizer vaccine or both doses of a Moderna vaccine, or the single dose of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. In light of the breakthrough cases happening now, can a person have received vaccines but still not be considered fully vaccinated?
Yeah, that is something that hasn't talked about in depth, I don't, since the beginning of things being pushed here because there are many that I have personally, and also those that I am reading about and hearing about, where they took the first shot of the Moderna or the Pfizer, and they were not comfortable taking the second shot because of the reactions and because of the side effects that they believe they had from the first shot. And so that is a pretty significant number of people. And I think that's also why we should consider that in some estimates, when you look at the media, they're saying that approximately 54% of Americans vaccinated. Have other saying 70-something%. I saw 75%, somewhere in that realm. So when you look at a large differentiation of information, then there's either lying involved or there's some type of manipulation of the numbers. And I believe that that is part of why we see a large number of change, because there are many people that don't want to chance the second in the 2-shot vaccine because of the side effects they're either with themselves or because once they get the vaccine, kind of a little more aware of happening. And people really to be involved in that they start, like we said in the
Yes. Right. Now, several months ago, the CDC gave guidance reducing social distancing and PPE restrictions. Was that guidance a mistake, which may have actually added to the surge in COVID-19 and its Delta variant cases?
Based on my research and the information that I have been digging to try to find, I believe it was because, as I have said previously, when you go back in history and you do research on something like the Spanish, the statistics show that as vaccination rates increased, the Spanish flu spread more and more around the world and killed more and more people.
Right.
And I believe we're seeing the same thing here because I remember seeing that once the vaccinations began in the general population, and once the vaccine had been in the general population for a few months, I remember Houston and many other states were having vaccine parties where you may have a concert, have a comedian, and this or that, and a lot of people are in these large games, and nobody had a mask. You weren't vaccinated, you couldn't be in arenas. But yet, when we see these type of things happening, we saw the rise in numbers. The numbers did not go down at the beginning of the vaccine press in this country. They went up and then they started going back down. And so that's why there are many of us scientists who are saying that the decrease in the numbers never had anything to do with the vaccination. It had to do with the waxing and waning that happens in viral infections in nature. And so now that there's at least half of America, based on statistics, or 2/3, depending on where you get your information, of this country has been vaccinated, is it possible that we're having a numbers similar to the beginning of the pandemic? Vaccines are that important in decreasing the possibility of spread. So I pray I answered that question.
You did. What measures can people take to safeguard their health and to protect their families?
Well, I think the thing that we have to do is stop being led by propaganda and try to find a way to get accurate information so that you can make a scientific decision that's based on numbers and math rather than what either, let's say, like, yeah, I'm more saying like stop getting your information from emotional places. So if they are an athlete, this or that person in front of you suggesting that you get a vaccine, the first thing you should ask yourself is what the heck does this athlete, entertainer, or whoever they are know about the medical field? Right. How you who played basketball your life or you has been an entertainer, when did you have to start researching in-depth research information and a vaccine?
Right.
Start looking from a scientific perspective. You won't be able to food. I think that's the number one thing. I think many people in my family and people that I know personally and have it with over the months, they allowed themselves to be bullied. They allowed themselves to be pressed. They allowed themselves to make decisions so-called to have a family and extremely sorrowful that they made a decision and they're diligent in getting the information. So that would be the thing. And then, as I said a few minutes ago, at the remaining time, having this, try as much as you can in the sun. Try as much as you can to try to grow your own food. The clip just talked about food prices and food shortages.
Right.
And then most importantly, you should start doing the things that you know you have been saying for years that you need to do. Drink more water, get more exercise, eat more fruits, eat more fruits, and stop thinking that you can't afford to eat healthy. Stop thinking you can't afford organic. This pandemic should have made us realize that spending money on cars and food, cars and food at your house,
right,
are about health as a priority. So rearrange your priorities and spend your money on organic food. Because as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad tells us in How to Eat to Live, if you spend little, if you spend cheaply, you're going to have a lot of money in your life on bills and all of that. So we might as well put things proper that we should and start prioritizing as we should.
Right. Now, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said in his 2019 message, Guidance to Black America, and America is surrounded with the judgment of God, that there would be a time when there will be a calamity after a calamity after calamity. Are we in the midst of that time that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan was warning us about?
I believe, based on his words, I can't make myself important based on what I understand of what he says, absolutely where I am. Because we're in the time that God judging a destroyed Black almost completely. Here we are in engagement of the country. And this of people, these children of our masters, are implementing programs to destroy us, from the food in certain area codes, water in our areas, to the air that we breathe, to the we're being manipulated towards vaccine, or HBCUs, our historically Black colleges, accepting millions of dollars from all these philanthropists. And now we see, as this new wave of children are going into school, the majority of our schools are trying to mandate vaccines. Right. So we can see, those of us who can see through the tricks, we can see that nothing has changed. The way that they lie to us, the way that they trick us, the way that they murder us are a lot more underhanded than when they used to hang us on trees and cut off pieces of our bodies when we tried to run away from that madness. But today, it's still going on. The numbers of us murdered are much higher than they used to be when those other practices were happening. And so people expect that the colonies are going to, and this is going to destroy little by little, just like the clip talked about. It went from food shortage to shortages to rising prices to oil. So we're really looking at a small clip that destroy America little. And that little by little destruction is for your people and brown Native people to get yourself together, to start differently, for you to start growing your own food, for you to unify people that look like you, so we build a way to rely on each other, stop relying on people that have murdered us, and still murder us to today.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Akili, for your insight. As always, we look forward to hearing more from you next week.
Thank you. Enjoy.
Yes, sir. Let's pause for announcements from our sponsors. When we return, educator Shahid Muhammad will join us for an interview on proficiency in mathematics and how Asiatic Minds is helping students improve their math skills. We'll be right back.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps to combat false media. Cash App NNV News.
Asiatic Minds, online education, helping our children to discover their God-given skills, gifts, talents, and passion that will allow them to see their greatness as well as the greatness of our people. And upon discovering that greatness, infusing them with the desire to use it for the betterment of themselves, their families, our people, and the world. Classes begin September 1st. To enroll, visit AsiaticMinds.com.
This is Sister Sajda Muhammad. We are proud to announce that the Sajda House commemorative Elijah coins are finally here. This priceless heirloom, made from recycled copper from the messenger's home, is now available at sajdahouse.com.
Greetings from National Network View. This week's Final Call cover story headline reads, "Separate and Be Saved. America's race problems and deadly race interactions are growing worse. It is time we leave the children of our former slave masters and 400-year-old tormentors. Separation from whites is the only and best solution to this problem, a serious problem that is rooted in prophecy. This FCN volume number 41 edition middle page article by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is entitled A Case for Separation. To read more, subscribe to finalcalldigital.com and tune in to the all-new Final Call Radio. This is the nnvnews.com Final Call Cover Report.
Please make sure you leave your comments and questions in the comment section below. Follow us on Facebook, National Network View, and make sure to check us out on Twitter as well, National Network View. This is Sergio Gutierrez with National Network View, signing off.
As America's public schools report low student achievement and proficiency in mathematics, especially for Blacks, Asiatic Minds is helping students improve their skills and abilities. Welcome, Brother Shahid Muhammad. Greetings, sir.
Peace
Yes.
and assalamu alaikum. Thank you for the invitation to be on your powerful program.
Thank you. Now, Brother Shahid, as the math doctor and Asiatic Minds Math Instructor, why is achievement and proficiency in mathematics so low in America's public schools, especially for Black people?
Well, the American public school system was never set up for the masses to be literate in any of the subjects, let alone mathematics. Those in power, the rich, bloodsuckers of the poor, they desire to stay in power. So they have to make sure the masses are dumbed down and illiterate in terms of reading and mathematics. So the school system was never set up for the betterment in mathematics. And then the American society, if we look at today particularly, is a society with a lifestyle full of distractions, sport and play, people just seeking pleasure, savagery, and all those things go totally against excelling in mathematics. See, math is a subject that requires discipline, consistent practice and exposure, persistent engagement, and active involvement. And it has to have relevancy. So if the masses are all caught up in pleasure seeking, sport, play, savage behavior, the attainment of things, materialism, the last thing on their mind is mathematical literacy and competency. So all this plays a role in a society that does not do well in mathematics because they're not pushed to do well in really any form of education in this crazy, savage society that we call American society. Satan's public schools were designed, as I said, to dumb down the masses. And so we, Black people, are at the bottom, as you said, of mathematical achievement because we are the main target of this satanic group called the 10% body, Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, that seek to keep us down since we were brought over here as slaves.
In public schools across America, data analysis has concluded that Black and Hispanic students are being improperly classified as having a learning disability and are overrepresented in special education. Why do you think that Black and brown students are over-identified for learning disabilities and overrepresented in special ed?
Well, I think it's about 85% of the American public school teachers are white female teachers, and they cannot deal with the energy, the power seeking, the activity of the Black male in particular, the Hispanic male in particular. That's why usually these labels of attention deficit disorder, hyperactive, all that usually is targeted toward the Black male, Hispanic male, but in particular the Black male, because these Caucasian teachers have no idea, no clue on how to relate to these Black boys, these Hispanic boys, and children of color. They come from a totally different world, all right? And some of the research, there's a researchers named Johnson and Chris Sonis, 2006, they stated lower math achievement levels of minority students, particularly Black students, may be indicative of the curriculum and instruction that these students receive. Then there's another group of instructors that stated, these were the researchers Cohen, Joseph, and Romberg. They stated school math curriculum, assessment, and pedagogy are often closely aligned with an idealized cultural experience of the white middle class. So Blacks, Hispanic children are totally tuned out of this educational system. The pedagogy goes against our culture. The instruction from the teachers and the curriculum is centered with white supremacy. So it's no wonder that we're doing the worst in terms of mathematical achievement and really any achievement in any subject. But in particular, mathematics is very difficult for us to learn only because it's a white supremacist type of educational system that does not keep our culture in mind, does not keep our reality in mind, and is totally incongruent with our reality and us as a people, the way we learn, the way we propagate knowledge and so forth. All of it goes against our total cultural being. So it's not a coincidence that we see these statistics, but there are many students, Black, Hispanic, that do well in mathematics, but they're not publicized. They continue this statistic that we're at the bottom, we're doing terrible, but you continually see, like the sister that won the spelling bee, Black sister, right? There's Black children all over that are doing well, what they can label as genius, but that for us is natural because we were the originators of mathematics. We just need the right curriculum, we need the right instructors, and we need the right pedagogy. Then we'll see our God-given talents explode, and we'll be back to the level of mastery that we were before we were brought over here by our kidnappers and our open enemy.
Right. Now, how important is it for the Asiatic Minds instructors to understand the reality and the mindset of its students?
Oh, you have to know the mindset of the students. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad says, you cannot be successful teaching the people unless you speak their language. So if we don't know the language of our children, if we don't know the realities of our children, if we don't know their cultural experiences, backgrounds, and just them themselves, we will not be able to reach them. I always teach that we have to marry the math world with the students' world. They have to come together and be integrated, synthesized, and synergized. That's not going to happen if the instructor is not aware of the student's background. But that is why Asiatic Minds is a tremendous blessing, because we are taught the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. They are at the core of the curriculum of Asiatic Minds. So the instructors are already coming with a mindset that they have to know the three essential knowledges: the knowledge of self, the knowledge of God, and the knowledge of other than self or your open enemy. And since the Asiatic Mind instructors have those three essential knowledges coming from the teachers of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, they are going to be light years ahead of any other instructors that don't have that foundation and body of knowledge.
Perfect. Now, how will Asiatic Minds help students improve their level of performance and achievement in math?
Well, one big thing that I will do, and all the other instructors that teach math, is we teach the students that they are mathematics. When they look in the mirror, I let them know you are a walking mathematical body from head to toe. You are mathematics. So don't say I love myself and then I hate math, because that is incongruent. You are mathematics. We're taught by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, each subject, we have to teach them that they are that subject. So then I also show them the relevancy of mathematics. Most students are tuned out in math because it's just a bunch of numbers and letters to them that have no meaning to their reality. But I tell the students, you're not learning math just so you can count your money. That's what a lot of teachers tell them, which is old and tired. You know, we're dealing with a sophisticated group of students these days. You got to come better than that. I teach them math is universal. You need math in sports. You use math in music. You use math in cooking. You use math in engineering, science, farming, everything, every discipline. Just sitting on a corner, you're using math. So if they see that mathematics is relevant to their reality, what they want to be, what they're doing currently, things that they're interested in, then you'll have an explosion of motivation and inspiration. And that desire, as we're taught by Minister Farrakhan, will feed the will, and then they will have the will to want to learn and master math. But if it's just irrelevant, then they'll be tuned out. And as you said about the labels, many of the labels, Dr. Jawanza Kanjufu stated in one of his books that it may not be that the Black African-American children are hyperactive, attention deficit disorder, and all them other labels.
Right.
It may be that the curriculum that they're receiving is too slow and uninteresting to them. It's uninspiring, unmotivated. So what they do is they go do something else that interests them. And usually that is some type of what they label as misbehavior. Then they're labeled special ed, they're labeled developmental, they're labeled mentally retarded, all because the pedagogy and the curriculum does not interest them and does not bring them into the reality.
Right. Now, a point that you touched on a little earlier was that Blacks were builders of civilization. And doing complex mathematics thousands of years ago, what would you say? How do you think we lost that knowledge?
Oh, it was purposely and scientifically stolen from us when the kidnapper came and got us from Africa and brought us over here as slaves. You cannot make somebody a slave if they have a problem-solving, critical thinking, reasoning type of mindset. You have to destroy all that knowledge, because mathematics is the foundation of building any civilization. It is the foundation of almost all sciences. So you have to strip them people of that knowledge so that they will not be able to build their own civilization, to think outside of being a slave. You have to destroy them totally in the mind. And you definitely don't want them to be powerful thinkers in mathematics, because then they'll think a way out of their condition. They'll problem solve a way out of their situation. So they purposely stole that mathematics from us. However, even in slavery, research shows that the slaves had math skills better than the slave masters and the slave traders. And they would go to the slaves to help them do some math before they actually begin to rob that knowledge from us. But we know during slavery times, and you can get narratives, and the slaves will tell in the narratives. There's a book called Bullwhip Days, and the slaves said that the master wouldn't have let them read, would not let them read, and would not let them figure. And figure is just short for do arithmetic or do mathematics. So those were two things that the slave master made sure that the slaves were not able to do, and that was read and be mathematically strong and powerful. So all that set us on a path to be mathematically illiterate, but in all that, we still had signs that we are mathematically inclined and powerful and masters by nature, because when they wanted to put somebody up on the moon and put their rockets up, they had to come to the three black sisters in the Hidden Figures movie that we saw to get mathematical help. So even though they tried to crush us, we still show signs that mathematics is all in our nature, that we had thousands of books of mathematics that we hid from the enemy when we knew he was coming, because we didn't want him to be on the planet long.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Brother Shahid. Very quickly, I have no doubt that anyone who is in your class will excel in math. How can parents contact you to enroll their children?
Yes, for the Asiatic Minds School, you just go to AsiaticMinds.com. If you want to reach me, you can go to the website, my website, themathdr.com. So to enroll in a powerful school, Asiatic Minds, go to AsiaticMinds.com. And my website is themathdr.com. I do have online courses as well. And I will be teaching, inshallah, with the Asiatic Minds, also with Muhammad University of Islam in Chicago, Illinois.
Wonderful. Thank you, Brother Shahid, for joining us today.
Thank you so much for the invitation. May God bless you and the entire staff. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you for joining us today and tuning into National Network View News. Please share your thoughts with us in the comment section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel, NNV News. This is Roaslind Parks for National Network View News. Good night.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.